that particular location. So I just described mainly a visual, right? And hearing the watch was ticking louder and louder, you see the watch shatter. But maybe when the watch shatters, pieces of the watch hit your hand, and then you eat those pieces because it's made of candy. If you get those additional senses involved, then it becomes very, very easy to recall the information. Okay? Next thing I want to talk about is remembering names. Okay? How can you better remember people's names? Remembering names is incredibly important in business and in your personal life. I often quote the famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. In that book, Dale Carnegie wrote that the sweetest sound to a person in any language is the sound of their own name, and also that everyone's favorite subject is themselves. Okay? So if you are able to remember people's names and other information about them, it helps you to build better business as well as personal relationships with them. So I'll first give you some practical steps to take when meeting people aside from these type of visual memory techniques. Step number 1, whenever you're introduced to someone, make it a point to immediately repeat the name in some way. So if you're introduced to someone named Jack, just simply say, "I'm pleased to meet you, Jack. It's great to meet you, Jack." Something like that will go a long way towards helping you remember the name because it's forcing you to put more focus on the name that will help prevent it from simply going in one ear and out the other ear. Next thing, early on in your interaction with a person, make it a point to ask them a question using their name. So, Jack, what brings you to the conference? Jack, have you ever been to the Hope Conference before? Jack, how do you know Chester? Something like that. Any question utilizing their name. Again, the idea is to put more focus, prevent it from going in one ear, out the other ear. Third step, take just a few seconds to think of any association between the person's name and anything at all that you already know. And when I say anything, I do mean anything. So Jack might make you think of Jack in the Box. Jack might make you think of the game Jacks, those jacks that you throw on the floor, right? Anything that you can associate with the name. Maybe you know someone else named Jack. You have a friend or family member named Jack. Maybe you think of Jack from Lost. Anything like that, any type of association like that will help you to remember the name. Last step, when you leave the meeting, leave the conference, leave the party, whatever, make it a point to say goodbye to the person using their name. Bye, Jack. I hope to see you again sometime, Jack. Anything like that, if you do that, it will go a long way towards helping you remember the person's name the next time you see them. And also, if at that point you don't remember the name, I recommend that you go ahead and ask the name again. They won't be offended. In fact, most people will appreciate the fact that you're making the effort to remember their name the next time you see them. Okay? Now, if you combine all of those practical steps with the visual memory improvement technique that I'm going to give you now, it becomes almost difficult to forget people's names. The visual technique is to pick out something unique about the person, okay? Use your imagination to exaggerate that thing, whatever it may be. It may be a facial feature. Then you come up with an image or series of images that will remind you of the name, and you take that image or series of images and you use your creativity and imagination to link it to that special feature or that outstanding feature. I'll give you an example that I gave on CNN that they seem to think was pretty humorous. If you meet someone named John, and John, you think he has rather big ears, you might imagine those ears as being gigantic ears flapping on the side of his head. And since the name's John, you might imagine that in each ear there's a toilet bowl flushing, as in going to the John, right? Toilet wasn't going to the John. So then when you see the person again, you see the big ears, and that imagery will come back out at you of the toilet bowl flushing. It will remind you that the name is John. It sounds kind of silly, but I promise you it's a very powerful technique. It will really dramatically improve your ability to remember people's names. It's similar to the body list technique where we stored information at locations on our body, but now we're storing it on the other person's body. Another example, if you meet someone named Jane and you think she has rather beautiful hair, you might imagine that her hair is made of chains, okay? Then the next time you see her, you notice her really beautiful hair again, the imagery of it being made of chains, maybe the chains are clanking against each other. Chain will remind you of Jane. That is another example. Granted, this does take a bit of practice, but if you practice, you could become very good and be able to learn a person's name in 10 seconds or less. I've done this. I spoke at a conference for the California Federation of Interpreters, and as people walked into my seminar, I shook their hand, met them. There was about 200 people in the audience, and I was able to name everybody in the room. So the technique is very powerful and effective. I'm going to go into the question and answer session now, but before I do that, I would like to take some volunteers from the audience to help me pass out these evaluation forms. I want you to evaluate me. I really appreciate your input on the presentation. Okay. And before we start the question and answer session, people often ask me, if I provide additional training, do I have a course that will help you to improve your memory? I do, so I'm going to quickly talk about that. I have a home study course that can help you to improve your memory. The course is 6 hours worth of interactive instruction. It's very similar to this presentation, fun and educational exercises. The first session is memory fundamentals. During that session, I teach you a wide variety of memory improvement techniques that can help improve your memory in general. I teach a number memory session, which teaches you how to remember any type of information that contains numbers, phone numbers, passwords, facts that contain figures, all sorts of information that contains numbers. The third session is names and faces. I teach you a wide variety of techniques to help you remember names and faces better. There are additional techniques, additional variations on the ones that I covered today. That course actually simulates introducing you to 40+ people. You'll see a slideshow on my website, and you'll see the person and their name, Jack, John, Alice, and so forth. So you can really build up this memory skill. The last session covers building up a large vocabulary in a foreign language quickly and easily using these types of memory techniques. It covers giving speeches and presentations from memory without looking at any notes. And it teaches how to easily master material for college course exams and certification exams. All right. Quickly, I want to give you some more information about numbers. How I did the number memory demonstration is I came up with an image or series of images to remind me of each number, and I linked it to locations from my environment instead of locations from my body. That's something that I teach you in the course. I teach you a system that you can use to take any number sequence and create an image, and then you use locations from your environment, say this table, then the stereo box, and then the screen, the chair, and then you think of those locations in order and recall the images there, and you can come up with the number sequence. On the order form, you will see prices for my home study course. There's also a one-day workshop that I teach in San Francisco that corresponds to the same sessions in the home study course, but it's live, one-day instruction from me. The workshop's held on Saturdays in San Francisco. If anyone is interested in anything that I offer today, I'm going to give you a special offer for the home study course rather than the regular price of $175. Cross that out. Today you can order it for only $100. If you're interested in San Francisco workshop, cross out that price and I'll let you register for only $200. And for the workshop, your registration will count towards any future workshop date that I have. So if you register today, you'll be on a list that I maintain and you'll be updated as dates are added, and you can come to any future workshop date. At this point, I'll take questions on anything that I've talked about today.
Hi, could you just take maybe 3 steps to the right and do those numbers again? Backwards would be really impressive, but...
Okay, you want me to go through the number sequence again?
Yeah, just I'm trying to determine, anybody can memorize, I probably couldn't, but a lot of people can memorize things very short term.
Okay,
and
sure.
I'm kind of figuring out, do you stick those in short term, or could I ask you next week for those numbers? Or
So with one review, it's unique to the individual how long it will last. But using these techniques, it will stick a lot longer than the traditional methods of memorizing things. If I were to have memorized this just by rote, how people usually do it, writing it, I probably would have forgot it, but I should still be able to repeat it forwards and backwards at this point. And I'll go ahead and do that, but let me finish the answer. Because we're making very efficient use of our brains with these techniques, okay? that is the key. I've spent the last 10